This is Alexandra George with Inside Ambition, and I'm here to talk to Rachel Callahan today. She's the Senior Co-op Advisor for Training and Development, and she's going to answer some student questions about what to do with co-op during this pandemic. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm hanging in there. It's a crazy time, so I feel like it changes every 5 minutes. The answer to that question. It feels so weird these days, but right now I'm doing okay.
Could you just give us a little bit of a description of what your job actually entails?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a co-op advisor, just like all of us. I work with a caseload of both students and employers. I primarily work with the College of Nursing and Health Professions, the Dornsife School of Public Health, and the LeBeau College of Business. And then I have a caseload of employers that primarily focuses on healthcare and business organizations that employ students in those majors and in those industries. And then as a senior co-op advisor, I'm also in charge of training and development for our staff. So I work a lot with new co-op advisors when they're learning the job. And then I also work a lot with sort of general professional development for our whole department at the Career Center.
Got it. Very nice. So you're a very important person. I'm perfect to be talking
say
to.
That. I do a lot of different things here and there, and I really kind of, as you can see, I really enjoy talking about professional development in a lot of different facets.
First off, I know that most co-ops, if not all of them, have been moved virtually. So could you just speak to how a virtual position differs from one that students were expecting, if it differs at all, or pros, cons, what that might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And the first thing that I really want to throw out there is that I'm also learning right now how different a virtual position is and working remotely is. My job has never been a work from home job. We go into the office every single day. We're there for students every single day. So this is, number one, a learning curve for every level of professional right now. But what we're learning, what we're finding is that while they are different, the value that you are getting out of it, specifically when we're talking about co-op and shorter term positions, really is directly related to how much you're putting into it. And that's true of any co-op, in person or remote. It does put a different spin on things. I really think soft skills are so much more important, and they're so much harder to learn and develop in a remote position. It takes a lot more initiative and intention to communicate with and get to know your coworkers, to stay engaged at work. There's no water cooler when we're all working from home, right? There's no sort of like, oh, I just had a quick question. Can we check in on this thing? Or here's my thing. Did I do it right? There's so much less of that little interaction when you have to be this intentional about scheduling your time and Zoom meetings and maybe being on the phone all day. And we're also learning it's a different kind of exhausting too. So you really have to take ownership and really manage your time, your accountability, and really up your communication game and your networking and professional relationship building, because nobody's going to be able to follow you or be on you nearly as closely as they would in person. So it's really on you. It's on you to be proactive, to be accountable, to be vocal, to really put yourself in front of people and say, hey, can we schedule a coffee? Hey, can we do a half-hour check-in at the end of the day 2 or 3 times a week just to make sure I'm on track? But if you can do that, if you can really be proactive and take ownership of your role like that, I think there's actually a lot more that you can learn and that you can develop, because you have to in a position like this.
And who knows what the world is going to look like in the next year. So developing these skills might be more crucial than we even are able to recognize right now.
Exactly. And I really think that there's going to be so much about all of this that whatever the other side of this looks like for everybody outside of quarantine, when things are back to whatever normal is going to be in the future, there's going to be so much shared understanding of how hard this was. And so people who can really come out of this with those skills, with those kinds of initiative, accountability, time management, who can structure themselves and still really get their job done, and then who can speak to that in a future job search or in a future job, are not only going to be more valuable in a job search, but in the world of work, you will have so much to teach your colleagues. And I mean, hopefully nothing like this ever happens again, but in any industry, regardless of what's going on, if you can flex yourself and be in the office, but then work from home, but then do this thing and that thing, that kind of versatility and flexibility and adaptability is some of the most important professional skills you can have.
Yeah, for sure. I know that a lot of students, like co-op was supposed to begin back in April. Some of them got postponed to the end of April. Some are still being postponed. Some are postponed indefinitely. So for students who are in those positions who have co-ops but aren't currently working yet, what do you suggest that they should be doing right now?
Yeah, so this is one of the things that I was actually really interested in talking about, and I have been really addressing or trying to address this with my students. But what I've been saying is I think everybody right now should be getting really creative with their professional development. Of course, the hope is that everybody can jump into a co-op tomorrow and get started and learn by doing, and everything will go back to normal. But that is not the world we're living in right now. So if you are delayed, quarantined, still searching for a job, there is a lot that's going on out there that you can still engage in and continue to build those skills that I was just talking about and get better at them. Time management and communication, again, being sort of like 1 and 2 right now, making sure that you are starting to think about what that means for you outside of a job, what that means for you in your life. It's really good kind of just general health and well-being advice. I think I was even just listening to a podcast and they said, in the first week of quarantine, I sat on the couch and I just ate whatever I wanted. And now that we're pushing into almost 2 months, that's not working. Yeah, it's not sustainable. And I think the same is true with everything. It's now that we're over a little bit of that initial shock and everybody's kind of looking for, what am I supposed to be doing right now? There actually is a lot out there. So keeping a schedule, structuring your time, networking, going on LinkedIn, attending webinars, reading news from your industry. So I know that, again, one of the sort of health and well-being things for a lot of us is maybe not engaging so much with the news right now because it is so overwhelming and uncertain and stressful. But there's a lot inside of industries that people are doing to creatively respond. Again, my students primarily are in the healthcare and business industries, and all of this pivoting to remote work and how we can be successful remotely is something that a lot of business industries are very highly focused on right now. And then obviously healthcare with the development of vaccines and the public health monitoring of, populations and contact tracing. Like there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there spawning because of this crisis. And I think that really keeping up with that, keeping track of that can be an empowering and active way to not only engage with the news and maybe feel a little bit better about how things are going, but also then be engaged with your industry and really keeping up with what some of the heavy hitters in your industry are doing, how they're responding and what things have to change, either in the short term because of quarantine or in the long term overall because of just, the uncertainty of how this is going to go. So all of these things can still be really helpful with building those skills that I've been talking about. And I really just think that if we can pivot our own sort of understanding of professional development and what that means, I think there's really so much opportunity out there to continue your professional development, regardless of if you're working right now or not. I think it can be really positive and empowering and not burdensome. So, you know, whatever you can do, a lot of people are talking right now, like I said, in every single industry. And I think it's really, really fascinating to watch some of this stuff develop in real time.
Yeah, for sure. This all kind of went down right as C round was getting started and interviews were happening. So some people never even had the opportunity to secure a co-op, and also for those co-ops that were canceled. Are classes an option for these people? What else can they be doing if they really don't have a job? I know you mentioned like the skill development, but are there positions still open?
Yes, there are definitely positions still open. We keep a running list that we share with all of our students who are job searching. And I just looked at it, you know, a couple of days ago, and there are still hundreds of jobs listed for people who are recruiting. Now, as everybody knows, that sounds like a great number. It is a great number, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, in every single industry, there's one that works perfectly for you and your job interests. But what it does mean is that there is still a lot of opportunity out there. And again, in terms of getting creative with what you're looking at, what you're looking for, what is possible, there's absolutely, you should absolutely still be looking for a job right now. It's harder, but it is not impossible. I actually on Friday had one of my employers email me, who's in healthcare, and he said, actually, you know, because of this crisis, I think I might have a project for like a marketing student. Is that something I could recruit for right now? And I was like, absolutely. Yes, please. So even again, as we're all trying to figure out what this means, like I said, in both the short term and the long term, it's a constant change of people at all levels figuring out what we need, what's available. And so we are still getting positions. We call that job development too. Like we have a team in the Steinbreit Career Development Center who are specifically dedicated to employer relations and job development. They're much more sort of behind the scenes usually, but they have absolutely kicked their work up to a 10 in the last few months. And we've been reaching out to our employers that we already work with to sort of gauge the lay of the land, obviously for co-ops that are delayed or are canceled or might be happening or might be new opportunities. We've been working to communicate with faculty and our academic partners in every college and every major to sort of see what they're doing, what research is happening, again, maybe what's new even because of COVID-19, looking at everything that's on Handshake and LinkedIn and trying to really do some networking and some job development ourselves. So everything that I am suggesting to you guys, I definitely want to let you know we are also doing in order to continue to develop opportunities that people could start tomorrow and circulating those opportunities. So the first thing, yes, there are positions available. Absolutely continue your job search. In terms of returning to classes, are classes an option? That's a much tougher question. And, you know, that's one thing that has been left out of all of the FAQs and everything. And a lot of people do ask sort of like, why hasn't that been addressed? And the real answer there is because it's so much more complicated than that, as always. It varies program to program. So to put up one answer is challenging because it's never going to apply to everybody. So disclaimer, talk to your co-op and academic advisors. That's always your best bet to get the right answer for your major, for your program, for your personal plan of study. However, there are different co-op options, generally speaking. There's the 4-year 1 co-op, the 5-year 3 co-op, there's a no co-op option. There's a lot of different ways. So if your major has a no co-op or a 4-year plan and you're on the 5-year plan, there are a lot of people who are sort of changing which co-op concentration they want, and they are sometimes going back to classes. But there are a lot of majors that don't have those options maybe, and so that's not possible. And the other thing too is that that only speaks to the co-op side of it. Then there's also the question of, are there classes that you need?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you are on a plan of study that's a little bit more rigid in terms of prerequisites and all of the different classes that you have to take at a certain time, they might not be available
mm-hmm.
in the summer term if you wanted to. So even if you had those options, that might not be appropriate for your particular case. So the real answer is it just depends, and you really have to be in communication with your academic advisor and your co-op advisor. And then, of course, everything's crazy right now and everything's topsy-turvy. So that's going to be the best answer for literally everything from here. So there's a lot of individual questions to consider when you're talking about that. And like I've been saying, I think there's a lot that you can do. I think a lot of students are switching back to classes because they are maybe scared about the job market, concerned about using their time wisely. And I resonate with that a lot. I am somebody who is always concerned about using my time wisely, making sure I'm on track. So another thing I actually just want to mention, because a lot of my students have been very worried about this, is you can still get co-op credit without a co-op position.
Right.
You know, because co-op is mandatory, because there are a lot of times when you can't go back to classes, and because nobody can guarantee you a job ever, basically, but certainly not me, we are absolutely committed to working with every single student to make sure that you are getting co-op credit, you know, working with us, continuing your professional development. And yes, sometimes that means that online class that a lot of students, you know, complain about. But again, there's if you are in communication with your advisors, you do not have to worry about your plan of study.
Yeah.
You know, you can get co-op credit, and I don't want people to worry about that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. You're totally right. Some people are just nervous, can't find anything, but there is always an option in some way, shape, or form. Just looking forward, I know that it's impossible to really assess like what the next several months might look like. But how do you think this is going to affect students who are on fall-winter co-ops, considering what the economy looks like right now, what it's going to look like? And what advice do you have for those students that are worried about their future co-op positions?
So one of my colleagues shared with me a week or two ago that she's been sharing with a lot of her students who are doing a fall-winter job search that we don't have a lot of information necessarily right this second, but we all hope that by September that we're all planning a few months ahead instead of a few moments ahead, like it feels like we're doing right now. And that resonated a lot with me. There's still so much. When we all moved to remote, when finals went online and spring break got extended for a week, even I was like, oh, we'll just be, you know, we'll do this and they'll get started and everything will be back to normal. And then I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe we'll go back in the middle of spring term, and now summer's remote. And so just like you guys have been getting this information little by little, like that's literally how the whole world is getting their information too. It's we are all still hoping for the best and hoping for the best and hoping for the best. And I think we're just reaching a point now after a couple of months where we're like, okay, so this is actually going to be a really long-term implications. Even if we do go back to normal, we have to be ready to pivot, to have these conversations, to be prepared. So I'm not in the prediction game anymore of what September is going to look like in terms of the economy or jobs or this and that. Or frankly, even next March and April either. I've always told students that a big part of any job search is being able to handle uncertainty, because, as I said before, nobody can tell you when you're going to get a job. And especially if you're utilizing our co-op system, like everybody wants to get a job in A round. And I mean, that would be great if everybody got a job in A round. But if you've been through the system, you know that that's not the case. And most students don't get a job in A round. for a lot of reasons, So there are a lot of people who go through multiple rounds of job searching, who are job searching for months on end, and that's in a normal scenario.
Right.
So now everything's, again, turned up to a 10, and we really have to be, number one, very transparent with each other that I don't know, and to some extent I never knew.
Yeah.
But we're definitely all feeling that a lot more right now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to really speak out loud and just say, like, yeah, I mean, this has kind of always been a part of the game, but it's very true. What I've been telling my students in terms of how to handle that and maybe how to mitigate some of the stress that comes along with that. Number one, be prepared to apply to 1 million jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, be prepared to do a really rigorous and robust job search over the next couple of months. Be prepared to have conversations about, okay, if this is in person, what happens if there's a second wave? What happens if something else happens and we go back into, this kind of remote environment?
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to ask questions about maybe how they responded, not just to co-op, but as an organization this March and April, because I think there's going to be a lot really for the rest of our lives where, the things that we are able to do, like I said, on the individual level, in terms of how you dealt with this, how you handled it, how you grew from it. I think the same is true for organizations too.
Yeah.
And so really understanding what that organization and what their people were going through, I think will give you a lot of good information about, if the worst case scenario happens again, what might you expect or be able to expect? I would say in terms of other things, start thinking now about all of this networking and industry monitoring ideas that I said for spring, summer students.
Right.
I think fall, winter students should be doing the same thing. I think that's, again, number one, part of a robust job search. And number two, will clue you in to how your industry is feeling and responding and bouncing back over the next couple of months. I think more and more students should be thinking about and be getting serious about a self-directed job search, maybe outside of SCDC Online. Like I said, thing number one is going to be applying to 1 million jobs. So don't limit yourself just to SCDC Online. Even if it's your third job search and you've never done something outside of SCDC Online, think about it. Even if it's your first co-op and you've never done any job search before, think about it. I think we have to get creative with both how we're doing our job searches and what we're expecting.
Right.
So your co-op might not look exactly like what you thought it would. Again, if you're that third co-op student, you've had 2 previous very similar co-ops, but now your industry is completely changed. I think we need to be prepared for that. And I think students really need to be thinking very flexibly about what kinds of skills and abilities they can build in a co-op that will help them in their next job search and their next job search and their next job search. So even if we're talking about, going to grad school next or doing a full-time job search, your co-op can look like a lot of different things to build the skills and abilities that could be really, really beneficial to you in the long run. So what's going to make you a good candidate, not just for that one position that you were really hoping to do and hoping to get and that you're hoping to do right after graduation, but what's going to make you a well-rounded candidate that could pursue a lot of different things? Yeah. What's going to be interesting to you and engaging? And I think if you can really be creative about that, what that means, I think you'll have a lot more that's open to you overall. I have had healthcare students who have done co-ops in more like business organizations and business areas because it really has helped them in terms of managing people and administrative and even research capabilities. and then go back into a healthcare organization later, feeling so much more strong in those areas. And I think that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking of, where it's like, it might not be exactly the kind of organization or the kind of job you thought it was, but if it's interesting, if it's going to help you in your career development and professional development generally, see what happens. Try it.
Yeah, and besides, half the reason why people are so invested in the co-op process is so that they can get that dream job someday. So not finding your dream job right now is not the worst thing.
And it was never really the point. Right? Your dream job maybe sometimes shouldn't be your co-op, because keep shooting higher, keep pushing yourself, keep growing, and so start from somewhere and then really just use it. We talk about transferable skills all the time, even in Co-op 101, from the very beginning, about how everything you've done even prior to co-op, whether that's what you call a real job or volunteering, community service, they have already started building your skills. So don't stop thinking about it like that just because we're calling it co-op, and there are opportunities in your industry, and you will hopefully be working in your industry. There are a lot of creative ways to still be flexible and do that. I think that's going to be really important for fall winter students to keep an open mind.
Yes, for sure. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want students to know who are worried about their co-op?
Yeah, so 2 things, really. There's a real shared understanding for those of us who graduated in like the 2008-2009 downturn, when that job market was awful. And you just need to say like the year, and you get people who are like, oh yeah, oh, I know what you're talking about. Right? So you don't even have to talk about how hard it was. Everybody knows. There's a universal understanding there, and I think the same will be true about 2020. Like, the same's going to be true about this. So if you're searching for a co-op right now, whether you're spring, summer, or fall, winter, if you graduated or are about to graduate and are freaking out, I do think there's going to be that absolute same understanding for decades to come.
Even tenfold, because the international market will be well aware as well.
Exactly. So being able to respond to a reaction like you just had with, oh no, you know what I was able to do? And it actually gave me the opportunity to try this. And, I wasn't able to do this in my industry because I was too busy, doing that, or because there weren't that opportunities, or whatever happened to your industry. And so I did this instead. And here's how I got to where I am today, again, in 10 years. It makes you sound engaged, creative, graceful, and really, really, professional. And I think so. It's not just about how do you kill your time or how do you deal with the uncertainty, but you can really structure and manage this to your advantage, even if that's part-time or putting together a bunch of different professional development experiences. The other thing I wanted to really drive home today, and one of the reasons I really wanted to do this, is because we're here for you guys. We really are. We are working so hard, and that is not just co-op. That is the entire Steinbright Career Development Center, our career services team, our Co-op 101 faculty, our employer relations people, our pre-law, pre-health, all of us are here. And that's true of your academic advisors as well, and your professors. We are working as hard as we possibly can to make sure that absolutely every open opportunity is available and communicated, that we're finding opportunities. We are supporting you guys in your professional development, in your job searches, and making sure that you know what options are out there for you. We believe in co-op as much as you guys do. We really do. That's why we do this. It's not always just about co-op. It's about your full career development and really starting to develop these skills that are so hard teach in a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to strategize with you. We're here to commiserate with you. We're here to really just try and support you. Nobody's denying that this is hard or crazy, or that sometimes it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, you started with, how are you? And I'm like, I'm okay. Am I okay? I think I'm okay. You know, it sucks. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But we are showing up every single day.
That was really well said.
I really, really do appreciate the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
I really think that, you know, like we were saying before, it's so hard to communicate some of this via emails and FAQs, and there is just so much flying at all of us right now. Not just COVID virus, but literally everybody. There's so much changing so quickly and so much information flying at everybody that it really is hard to get something that simple across, but that really is the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure a lot of other students are going to too.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a good day.
Of course. Bye.